How are you doing? This is Martin from Gardens for Life. In this video I'm going to show you how to store tubers and which tubers do you even need to store at all. Because some of them are actually okay with being just kept out in the garden beds, just like these ones, but some of them are also frost sensitive, so it's better to keep the frost off them, either by the means of mulch, or you could possibly dig them up before the winter, or at the start of the winter, before the real hard frosts are coming, and keep them in the shed. So some tubers like Jerusalem artichokes and Mashua, even if well mulched, can actually be kept outdoors in our cold maritime climate all winter, so you don't actually have to dig them up. And here are the chickens. And with others though, you're better off to dig them up earlier in the winter. Like we've experienced a serious loss there with Ocas, because we had temperatures of down to -10 last week. Unfortunately, that meant we lost some of them as they freeze. They can take some amount of frost, but then if they thaw quickly, they'll be actually gone. So I'll take you to the greenhouse now in a minute, and we'll just take a look at what we do to store tubers very well, so that they have the best chances of getting through the winter in good condition until you can plant them. Tubers like Ocas and Yacons definitely benefit from being kept indoors in a greenhouse and potted up before they're planted out, because it'll actually extend the season, and you will get more, probably maybe 1.5 or maybe 2 times the amount of produce from each plant at the end of the season. So for that reason, it's definitely worth starting those off in the greenhouse. And here we are now in the greenhouse. Let me show you here. Here's our gatekeeper. He makes sure, Sheldon, he makes sure that the mice don't come in here and eat our seeds and tubers. And so here's our packing table, and we have some tubers here. So here's some of the orders that are ready to go out. And if you guys are waiting for your orders, I'm sorry, it's just been there's been a bit of a delay because of last week's frost, but also because we're just so busy. There's actually quite a bit of demand for all of these ancient edible tubers, and even for willow cuttings too, and some bare root plants as well. And for that reason, we have actually probably about 2 weeks of a waiting list for plants, or for orders to actually go out. So basically we've managed to save what Ocas we could after those hard frosts from last week, and we're going to store them in the shed until we're ready to plant them, so that we're not taking chances on those. And once the soil life actually warms up in March, it actually starts consuming the tubers, if certain tubers anyway, like Ocas. And we found that it's better to take them up and start them in pots in a greenhouse anyway. And Yacons are loved by slugs, so you're better off to start those off in an artificial environment like a greenhouse, like the one I'm in now. And of course it's very dry, and you can keep them up off the ground so that the slugs have a harder time getting at them. And that's what we do with the tables anyway. So when you receive your tubers in the post, you get something like this. This would be a packet of 2 Mashuas. So you basically take them simply out of the bag. Normally we'd put a bit of potting soil into it, depending. And so that's one of the tubers there. That's actually Mashua, and there's also a Mashua here. What we do then is, in order to keep them, to make sure that they don't go off before we plant them, you could plant them directly into a 2-litre pot, such as this one, and just put it in with compost, potting soil I should say. With Mashuas and even Jerusalem artichokes, you could actually plant those out directly, but we still start off some of them in the greenhouse in advance, just because we don't, certain varieties that we don't have many of anyway. So basically we simply take our potting soil, something like this stuff. It's very dry, but not completely dry, and it's perfect for holding the tubers and keeping the air off them. So what you need to do is you basically pour just crumble a layer of the soil into a tub like this, or into a pot, or any kind of tray or bucket, and you simply put your tubers here, and just like these, and then we take some soil, we put it on top. You could space them out, you don't have to space them out, but in this case I'm making sure of it, simply because we don't have very many of these left, because of well, they're actually, a lot of these Ocas are actually sold out, but then unfortunately the frost caused some losses as well last week. So as a result, we hopefully will have enough now to regrow them this year. So basically we just continue that process until it's full, just to keep the air off the tubers. There you go, shake it so that there's no air gaps in between, and that's it. We put a label on that now, so that's Oca Mexican Red, so we can put that over here ready to go in the shed. Basically that's all there is to it for storage of any kind of tubers at all, and just make sure you keep it frost free in a shed, and make sure that it's kept fairly dry, almost completely dry, but not quite, just to kind of simulate the soil. We write a label, put it on top, we bring the tray over here with the other trays, and that's it. We can have a number of them stacked up, and they don't take up much space, and it's great because you're stopping the air from getting to them, and you're keeping the varieties apart. And here's some horse chestnuts that we collected locally, and we're going to be growing some trees from those, which we've done very successfully last year actually. Let's show you one of the seedlings. So let's see if I have one here. Here are some of the horse chestnut trees that we grew last year, and it's so successful, it's amazing. You can simply put the seeds into a crate with some kind of soil or potting or compost, and then look, there's one bare root tree. That's a little bit smaller than usual, but we also have those available in our web shop if you're interested. But anyway, you can store any kind of root vegetables in the same method. You basically simply make sure that they're covered with something like a bit of potting soil or some sand as well. Traditionally people used to make actually a hole in the ground with you put the tubers or even the potatoes into the actual pit. It's called a potato pit, and then you cover them with straw, and then with soil on top of the straw. That keeps the air off them as well, and it stops them from freezing. And they used to keep potatoes that way for about half a year throughout the winter. And you can also keep yacon tubers, like the edible part, or even carrots, or if you have to, beetroot, in a shed as well. We kept some of these yacon tubers from last year, and they were actually still good in the following year. Basically for about 11 months we kept them, and some of them were still good to eat, which goes to show that it's a good way of storing things anyway. And if you have tubers that are already broken like that, I wouldn't bother storing that. You're better off to have ones that are like kind of sealed on both sides anyway and dry. Another little tip is if you have a clay like soil, or if it's sticking, if it's very wet outside and while you're harvesting your tubers, and then your soil is actually sticking to the tubers themselves. Now maybe something like this, you know, that could cause rot eventually, because especially if it's wet, you know, this is kind of it's okay. Like, I don't think I would have any reason to concern with this, but if you have a tuber like that where there's a lot of soil stuck to it and it's kind of moist or wet, I would maybe rinse off the tubers lightly with water and then dry them, in a greenhouse, for example, in a crate or on a tray, and then you can store them better, I think. But normally you're much better off to store any kind of root vegetables unwashed, just because it stops the bacteria and the fungi from attacking them. If you ever have tubers that are a little bit patchy, or maybe even a little bit frost damaged, a little bit squishy, I would suggest keeping a close eye on them and maybe not mix those with your primary crop. Even something like, let me just show you here, something like this stem here, see this stem on the top? I would remove that. It's usually, you can use the secateurs, it's quite brittle anyway. You can remove it and that'll leave it with a clean end. Also, here's one, look, and this is what happens. This is an example of what happens if you don't keep an eye on them and if it molds. This is because of frost damage, and this was simply kept here in the greenhouse for a couple of days. And you can see you don't want that spreading throughout your tubers being stored away. Every single tuber that we send out to you guys by post or by courier, we quality check them, just to make sure that there is no damage on them and that there is no holes or anything like that. Now, once if there was any kind of bug bites or whatever, if it's gone dry, it's fine. But if it looks like it might cause mold down the line, I wouldn't store it at all. I would just maybe keep it outdoors, or maybe store it separately from your main crop. A lot of root vegetables are actually very hardy, such as carrots and even Jerusalem artichokes, and some of the other ones are not so frost hardy, and if the frost goes low enough, it can freeze the soil layers where those tubers are located in the winter, and they can cause damage when they're thawing, especially if the sun is thawing them very quickly. So the idea is to harvest the ones that are not so frost hardy before there's any major frost in the winter. In Ireland, here in Central Ireland, for us that is usually a very mild winter, but sometimes we can get temperatures of -5 or even -10 like last week. Unfortunately, a lot of our Ocas got wiped out, but what was left of them anyway, and at least the ones that we grew in crates and containers. And when we harvested some of them, we end up with probably about half of them actually gone squishy. But if you were to plant, I'll show you that here now. See, some of these ones here, they were grown in crates like these, and you can see the stems have already long since receded, and here's the tubers. Some of them would have been exposed to the frost, which would have caused damage to them. Look, they've gone squishy, and their cell walls would have burst because from thawing. Generally speaking, it's not a problem. They can take to about -3, I believe, and this one is still good. That's firm, so you could replant that. So we're going to harvest these crates today, and let's see what we can get out of it. And also we have some still here in our woodchip island. A number of different tubers are still underground here, and we're going to harvest some of those too. And they're well insulated with this 4-inch layer of wood chips. And I'll show you here. Here's an example. Now these ones are actually Oca Mexican Red is the name of the variety. Look, even just about an inch or two below the surface, they're still firm, so they didn't freeze, even though it was -10 out here last week. So that's not bad. I'm pretty happy that there some of them survived. Unfortunately, a lot of our Ocas actually took damage last week, and as a result we don't actually have enough. We don't have quite enough, and I do apologize to those that we've had to send an email to. Those of you that have bought some, we don't have quite enough to serve all of you, but we need to make sure that we have plenty for the coming growing season, so that we can replenish our stocks for this year, for next winter. And a lot of them, as I said, you can keep in the soil, such as these Jerusalem artichokes here. Have a look here. We'll just pull up a stalk here. Look, Oh, that's not a Jerusalem artichoke, that's actually a yacon plant. That's okay, I want to show you those too. So you can see, looking at the worms love it around the roots, but they don't do any damage to them. So these ones are still okay, they're firm, and the roots are fine too. Once you mulch them with wood chips, you can store them outdoors in the winter. And that's always an advantage, because then you don't have to use up your valuable space in the shed or in the pantry to artificially store your tubers, unless it goes to -20 where you live, but then you probably don't live in Central Europe, or you most likely live in a northern climate, and here we don't really have to worry about those kind of things. Here's a Jerusalem artichoke. You can see these ones are fine. Oh, look at that, Jacob found a Jerusalem artichoke too. You want to take it up? Oh. Is it firm or is it squishy?
It's not squishy.
Yeah, see, so the Jerusalem artichokes can be stored outdoors in the soil, no problem. Even if you don't have it mulched, I believe they'll be okay. Ours are always fine. Worst case scenario, if you've had some frost damage, you can actually check the tubers. If they're gone squishy, most likely you'll have to throw them away. But some of them, here I'll give you an example. For example, here this one here, look. This kind of squishy, look. There's like drops. There's water coming out of it already. So you can't grow that, and I don't think you can store it. I think it'll go moldy eventually. I believe the cell walls probably burst after thawing and freezing. And yeah, some of these other ones here, they're in okay condition. You know, these ones are okay, a little bit squishy, so I'm going to make an attempt at storing them, but I'm not going to store them with the good tubers. I'm going to keep them here. So again, once you actually harvest your ocas before any kind of a major frost like we had last week, which is quite unusual actually. Last winter it was a mild one, and I don't think we've even had temperatures that low. So we haven't had any damage, especially with tubers grown in containers. Like if you've seen some of my other videos, you will see that we like to grow them in containers because it's so easy to harvest them, especially in crates like these, and in buckets, 14-litre buckets usually, and you can keep the varieties apart very easily as well. But unfortunately, of course, because they're off the ground, they also are more prone to frost damage. And yeah, if you have any questions, please let us know in the comments below, and thanks for watching the video. Bye bye.